The arrival of the Empire. It started as a quiet evening on Earth. Cities buzzed with their usual noise, and people went about their lives unaware of what was coming. Then, without warning, the sky changed. All over the world, the stars seemed to vanish. At first, people thought it was a strange weather phenomenon. But within minutes, panic began to spread. The truth was far worse than anyone could imagine. A colossal alien fleet had entered Earth's orbit. Their ships were massive, bigger than mountains, and shaped like sharp, gleaming blades. They hovered silently above the planet, blocking out the sun in some regions and casting shadows over entire countries. Television channels and social media exploded with blurry images of the ships, causing fear and confusion everywhere. In a small newsroom in New York, a journalist named Rachel stared at the breaking news on her screen. "What are those things?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her colleagues around her were just as stunned. Reports were coming in from all over the globe. Similar ships had positioned themselves above major cities: Tokyo, London, Cairo, New Delhi, and dozens more. Suddenly, without warning, a loud, metallic voice echoed across the planet. It wasn't coming from speakers or televisions. It was everywhere. The voice spoke in hundreds of Earth's languages, each word booming as though it were coming from the heavens themselves. "This is the Galactic Empire," the voice announced. "We are the rulers of the stars, and your world has been chosen to join us. Surrender your planet and its resources. Resistance is futile. You have one Earth day to comply." On the streets, people froze in terror. The voice wasn't just loud. It felt like it was inside their heads. Governments scrambled to respond. In Washington, the president held an emergency meeting with military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officials. The same was happening in every major country. But there were no answers, no solutions. The aliens hadn't sent a delegation or opened communication. They had simply delivered their ultimatum. In a secret underground bunker beneath the UN headquarters, world leaders gathered to decide humanity's next move. The atmosphere was tense, filled with fear and uncertainty. "We have to fight," said General Harris, slamming his fist on the table. "We can't just roll over and give them our planet." "And what will we fight them with?" replied a scientist named Dr. Patel. "Our most advanced weapons are toys compared to what they must have. They crossed galaxies to get here. We can't even leave our solar system." The argument continued, but no one had a clear plan. The military knew Earth's defenses were weak. Scientists knew they didn't have enough information, and politicians knew surrender would likely mean slavery or worse. Then, amid the chaos, an older man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes entered the room. No one had seen him before, but he walked with purpose, as though he belonged there. His presence was commanding, and the room fell silent as he approached the table. "Who are you?" demanded the UN Secretary General. The man smiled faintly. "I'm someone who can help," he said calmly, "but only if you listen." The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. They had no time for games. "Help us how?" asked the president, skepticism in her voice. The man leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "These aliens think they're invincible. They believe Earth is just another weak planet in their empire's path. But they don't understand what humanity truly is. You must let me warn them, before it's too late." The room erupted in confusion. Who was this man? What could he possibly do against an empire capable of blotting out the sun? But something about his tone, his confidence, made them hesitate. "What kind of warning?" asked Dr. Patel cautiously. The man's expression darkened. "A warning that will make them think twice about underestimating us. Trust me, I've dealt with their kind before. If we don't act now, they'll destroy everything." Before anyone could respond, the metallic voice returned, louder this time. "You have 23 hours remaining," it boomed. "Submit, or face annihilation." The leaders stared at the mysterious man, their fear and desperation clear. "If you can truly help us," the president said slowly, "then you have our attention. But if this is a trick, "It's not a trick," the man interrupted. "It's survival." Outside the bunker, the world teetered on the edge of chaos. People fled cities, hoping to find safety in the countryside. Others barricaded themselves in their homes, clutching their loved ones. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the aliens' technology, but progress was slow. In the skies, the alien fleet remained silent, an ominous reminder of the power looming over Earth. And as the clock ticked down, humanity faced an impossible choice: surrender and lose their freedom, or resist and risk total destruction. Yet, even in their darkest hour, a small spark of hope remained. The mysterious man had a plan, and though no one knew if it would work, it was better than doing nothing. Somewhere deep in space, aboard the flagship of the Galactic Empire, the alien commander, High Commander Zorith, watched Earth with cold, calculating eyes. "Primitive creatures," he muttered. "They'll kneel, just like all the others." But High Commander Zorith didn't know what he was up against. Earth was no ordinary planet, and humans were no ordinary species. And soon, the Empire would learn it the hard way. Earth's first contact. The alien fleet stayed motionless in the skies, casting eerie shadows over the Earth. Across the globe, people whispered the same question: what would happen next? Governments scrambled to prepare for what little they could, while fear spread like wildfire. But the real shock came when the Galactic Empire finally sent their representative. It began with a blinding light over the United Nations headquarters in New York. Out of nowhere, a sleek, silver shuttle descended gracefully. It was silent, moving as if gravity itself bent to its will. The alien craft landed with a soft hum in the middle of the UN courtyard. Security forces surrounded it, guns drawn, but their hands trembled. This was unlike anything they had trained for. Inside the bunker, the mysterious silver-haired man leaned against the wall, watching the scene unfold on a monitor. He shook his head. "Fools," he muttered, though no one knew if he was referring to the humans or the aliens. The shuttle's doors slid open with a soft hiss, and a tall figure emerged. The alien was humanoid but unsettlingly perfect. Its skin shimmered like polished marble, and its glowing violet eyes scanned the crowd, as if assessing their worth. It wore a flowing metallic robe that seemed alive, shifting colors with each step. "I am Envoy Talrex of the Galactic Empire," the alien declared, its voice smooth yet cold. It didn't need a translator. The words appeared in the minds of everyone watching. "I have come to deliver your terms of surrender." World leaders, hurriedly assembled in the courtyard, stepped forward hesitantly. The President of the United States, flanked by other representatives, addressed the alien. "Envoy Talrex, we are willing to negotiate." "There is nothing to negotiate," Talrex interrupted, its tone devoid of emotion. "Your species will provide resources, labor, and compliance. In exchange, we will allow you to exist under our rule. This is your final opportunity to avoid annihilation." The courtyard fell silent. The leaders exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to respond. Finally, the President gathered her courage. "And if we refuse?" Talrex tilted its head, as if amused by the question. "You won't refuse. We have conquered thousands of worlds, each more advanced than yours. Your resistance would be an insult, not a challenge." From the shadows of the courtyard, the silver-haired man stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. He wore a calm, almost amused expression. The world leaders turned to him in surprise. "And what happens," he asked casually, "if you underestimate us?" Talrex's glowing eyes focused on the man, narrowing slightly. "Who are you to speak for this planet?" The man smiled faintly. "Let's just say I know a thing or two about the price of arrogance. You assume Earth is weak because we don't travel the stars like you. But you've made a mistake. You've come here blind to what we're capable of." Talrex's amusement faded. It stepped closer to the man, its height towering over him. "You dare to challenge the Empire? You are insignificant." The man's smile disappeared, replaced by a stern, almost threatening gaze. This is your only warning, envoy. Leave Earth and never return. If you don't, you'll regret ever setting your sights on us." Talrex froze for a moment, as if trying to comprehend the audacity of the man's words. Then it laughed, a cold, hollow sound that sent chills through the crowd. "Your species is amusing, but your threats are as empty as your defenses. Tomorrow, when the clock runs out, you will see the might of the Empire." The envoy turned sharply and walked back to its shuttle, leaving an air of dread in its wake. The alien craft lifted off, vanishing into the sky as quickly as it had arrived. In the aftermath, the courtyard erupted into chaos. Leaders shouted, soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons, and the press frantically reported on the exchange. But the silver-haired man simply walked away, his expression unreadable. In the bunker, he found himself surrounded by a small group of leaders demanding answers. "What were you thinking?" The president snapped. "You just provoked them." "No," the man replied calmly. "I gave them a choice. Unfortunately, they didn't take it." "Choice?" General Harris growled. "What choice? We don't have the means to fight them." The man turned to face the group, his blue eyes blazing with a strange intensity. "You don't understand, do you? The Galactic Empire thinks we're like the other worlds they've conquered. But Earth is different. Humanity is different. We've been tested before, and we've survived every time." The room fell silent. Dr. Patel, who had been watching the exchange closely, stepped forward. "What do you mean by tested? What are you not telling us?" The man hesitated for the first time, as if deciding how much to reveal. Finally, he said, "There are things about this planet, about humanity, that even your greatest scientists don't understand. The Empire has made a fatal mistake. They see us as prey. They don't know they've awakened a predator." Outside, the alien fleet began repositioning itself, preparing for what seemed like an inevitable attack. The clock ticked closer to zero, and humanity's fate hung by a thread. Yet somewhere deep within the Earth, in places long forgotten by history, strange forces began to stir, forces that the Galactic Empire had never encountered. As the silver-haired man looked out at the night sky, he whispered, almost to himself, "They have no idea what's coming." The warning is delivered. The hours crept by like shadows in the night. Around the globe, humanity held its breath as the alien fleet hovered in the sky, silent but menacing. The Galactic Empire's deadline approached, and with it, the promise of annihilation. Every screen, every radio, and every device carried the same message. Time is running out. Deep beneath the UN headquarters, in the secured bunker where humanity's leaders gathered, tension was suffocating. The mysterious silver-haired man sat quietly at the edge of the room, observing the chaos with a calm that unsettled even the bravest generals. "We need answers," the president barked, slamming her fist on the table. "If you have a plan, now is the time to share it." The man rose slowly, his movements deliberate, his gaze piercing. "I told you before, the Empire's greatest weakness is their arrogance. They believe themselves untouchable, and that belief will be their undoing." General Harris scowled. "Arrogance or not, their weapons are light years ahead of ours. Do you suggest we throw sticks and stones at their warships?" The man smiled faintly. "Weapons alone won't win this war. I've seen this empire before, on other worlds. Their technology makes them lazy. They don't conquer with intelligence, they overwhelm with brute force. But when they meet something they don't understand, they hesitate. And hesitation, my friends, is fatal." Before anyone could respond, a sudden noise erupted from the surface, a low, resonating hum that grew louder by the second. The bunker's monitors flickered to life, displaying the alien fleet. The largest ship, a colossal structure that resembled a glowing fortress, was descending into Earth's atmosphere. "They're coming," whispered Dr. Patel, her voice trembling. "No," the silver-haired man corrected. "They're listening." Without waiting for permission, He approached the central console, a complicated interface for global communications. Technicians hesitated but stepped aside as he worked. "What are you doing?" demanded the Secretary General. "Delivering the warning," the man replied. With a flick of his wrist, he activated a hidden device strapped to his forearm. It was ancient, with glowing runes and mechanisms that no Earth scientist could comprehend. The bunker lights dimmed as the device emitted a pulse of energy, sending ripples through the air like invisible waves. High above, aboard the flagship, High Commander Zorath sat in his throne-like command chair, observing the blue planet below. His officers, clad in sharp metallic armor, reported the energy pulse with alarm. "Commander," an officer said, "an unknown signal is broadcasting directly to us." "Patch it through," Zorath ordered, intrigued. The silver-haired man's face appeared on the flagship's central monitor, his expression unreadable. "High Commander Zorath," he began, his voice carrying a weight that even the alien officers could feel, "I am speaking on behalf of humanity. This is your final chance to leave." Zorath leaned forward, his violet eyes narrowing. "A primitive insect dares to threaten me." "This is not a threat," the man said. "It's a warning. You have underestimated Earth. You think we are weak because we lack your technology, your weapons, your reach among the stars. But strength comes in many forms, and you are blind to ours." Zorath chuckled darkly. "I've conquered worlds that thought themselves special. None of them could stand against the Empire." The man's eyes burned with intensity. "And yet, you stand on the edge of the only world that will bring your empire to its knees. You see Earth as a prize, but it is a trap. Turn back, Commander. If you don't, you won't just lose this fleet. You will awaken forces that even your empire cannot contain." The room aboard the flagship fell silent. Zorath stared at the man, considering his words. "Empty bravado," he said finally. "Your world will kneel, like all the others." The silver-haired man leaned closer to the screen, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You've made your choice. Remember it when your empire crumbles." With a flick of his wrist, he ended the transmission. Back in the bunker, the world leaders were stunned. Some looked relieved, others furious. General Harris exploded. "What have you done? You've just painted a target on all of us." The man ignored him, turning to the monitors. "They'll strike soon, but they're more cautious than they let on. That gives us an opening." The president stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "An opening for what?" The man looked at her, his expression unreadable. "To show them why Earth is not a planet to conquer." Above, aboard the flagship, Zorath stood and addressed his officers. "Prepare the assault. Begin with their most populated cities. I want them to see their insignificance." "Commander," one of his advisors hesitated, "the energy signature from the warning. It's unlike anything we've encountered. Should we investigate further?" "No," Zorath snapped. "They are primitives playing with fire. Let them burn." As the alien fleet began its descent, strange phenomena erupted across Earth. Massive storms formed over the oceans, lightning flashing unnaturally bright. Deep underground, ancient structures long forgotten began to hum with energy. Across cities, people reported hearing strange whispers, as if the Earth itself was speaking. The silver-haired man stood at the center of the bunker, his ancient device glowing brighter than before. He turned to the leaders and said one final thing before the attack began. "They won't understand what's happening. Not yet, but when they do, it will be too late for them." Far above, in the darkness of space, the first alien ships pierced the atmosphere, unaware that the trap was already set. The Empire's attack. The countdown hit 0. In the skies above Earth, the alien fleet moved with terrifying precision. The Galactic Empire's ships, vast and gleaming with alien technology, descended toward the planet's surface. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to make an example of humanity. From their flagship, High Commander Zorath barked his orders. "Target their population centers. Let them feel the power of the Empire before their extinction. The fleet's weapons came to life. Massive cannons glowed with a sickly green light, gathering energy for the first strike. In space, the moon stood as Earth's silent sentinel, but it would not remain untouched. With a deafening hum, the flagship fired. A beam of pure energy struck the moon's surface, carving a deep scar into its face. On Earth, millions watched in horror as chunks of the moon broke apart and drifted into space. The world panicked. Television screens showed the destruction on an endless loop, while news anchors struggled to remain calm. In cities, people poured into the streets, their faces lit by the eerie glow of the alien ships. Sirens blared, but no one knew where to run. Inside the UN bunker, the tension was suffocating. The silver-haired man stood in front of the monitors, watching the carnage unfold. His expression was calm, though his eyes burned with a quiet fury. "They're testing us," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Testing us," General Harris roared, slamming his fists on the table. "They just blew a chunk off the moon. If that's a test, I'd hate to see it a real thing." The man didn't flinch. "They want us to surrender without resistance. They're playing with us, but their arrogance blinds them. They still don't understand what's coming." Dr. Patil approached him, her voice shaking. "What are you planning? You said we had an opening. What is it?" The man held up his ancient device. Its runes pulsed with a rhythm that seemed alive, sensing with the strange energy stirring across the planet. "This isn't just a warning," he said. "It's a beacon." Before anyone could question him further, the skies over New York erupted in fire. The alien fleet began their assault, raining down bursts of plasma onto the city below. Buildings crumbled, and the streets were filled with screams. The military scrambled to fight back, deploying jets and missile systems, but their efforts were futile. The alien ships moved too fast, their shields absorbing every attack without a scratch. Then, something unexpected happened. A strange energy pulse radiated from deep within the Earth, powerful enough to register even aboard the alien flagship. It was subtle at first, a hum that vibrated through the ground and sky, but it grew stronger with every passing second. In the bunker, the lights flickered, and monitors displayed erratic readings. "What is that?" Dr. Patil asked, staring at the screens. The silver-haired man didn't answer. Instead, he stepped outside, standing in the courtyard beneath the shadow of an alien warship. He raised his arm, activating his device fully. The rooms flared, emitting a beam of light that shot into the sky. Far above, on the alien flagship, alarms blared. "Commander Zorath," an officer shouted. "Massive energy readings are coming from the planet's surface. It's not technology we recognize." Zorath scowled. "Primitive worlds shouldn't have access to such power. Scan for its source and destroy it." As alien ships targeted the signal, the Earth itself seemed to fight back. Massive storms erupted over the oceans, with winds so strong they tore apart smaller vessels in the fleet. Lightning arced unnaturally, striking the alien ships with pinpoint accuracy. In the deserts, long-buried structures began to rise, ancient towers covered in glowing symbols, pulsing with the same energy as the man's device. In the streets of New York, a plasma blast tore through a skyscraper, but before it could hit the ground, something extraordinary happened. The debris froze in midair. A young woman, trembling and wide-eyed, held out her hand instinctively. Around her, others began to notice the same phenomenon, ordinary people displaying abilities they couldn't explain. Across the globe, similar events unfolded. In Tokyo, a firefighter found himself surrounded by an impenetrable bubble of energy as plasma blasts rained down. In London, a child lifted her injured mother into the air and flew to safety. In Cairo, an elderly man stopped a collapsing building with nothing but sheer willpower. The silver-haired man lowered his arm, his device now silent. He smiled faintly as the energy around him settled. "It's starting," he whispered. Inside the bunker, the leaders stared at the monitors in shock. "What's happening to our people?" the president asked, her voice filled with both awe and fear. "They're waking up," the man replied. "Humanity has always had this potential. The Empire's attack triggered something ancient, something buried deep in our DNA. This is the real reason Earth is different. This is what the Empire never saw coming." On the alien flagship, Zorath watched in growing unease. His fleet, which had crushed countless worlds, was now facing something unprecedented. The humans were not fleeing. They were fighting back, impossibly, inexplicably. "Commander," an officer stammered, their people are evolving. It's spreading like wildfire. Our ships are being neutralized." Zorath's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Focus firepower on their cities. Crush them before this, whatever it is, spreads further." But it was too late. Across the globe, humanity was rising. Ordinary people were becoming extraordinary, their newfound abilities turning the tide against the invaders. For the first time, the Galactic Empire wasn't just facing resistance. They were facing a force they didn't understand. As the battle raged, the silver-haired man turned back to the bunker, addressing the leaders one last time. "This is the beginning of a war they didn't plan for. They thought we were prey. Now, they'll learn what it means to awaken a sleeping giant." Above, in the skies darkened by fire and smoke, the alien fleet faltered. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire felt something it had long forgotten. Fear. Humanity fights back. The world was no longer silent. The Galactic Empire's warships still loomed in the sky, their weapons scorching the earth, but they were no longer unopposed. Across the globe, humanity's awakening had turned the tide of the invasion. What began as fear and despair was now something entirely different: defiance. In the rubble of New York City, a group of survivors stood together, their eyes blazing with newfound power. Among them was Sarah, the young woman who had stopped falling debris with her mind. She clutched her head, still unsure how she had done it. But when another plasma blast tore through the sky toward them, she didn't hesitate. Raising her hand, Sarah created a shimmering barrier of light. The blast struck it, exploding harmlessly. Around her, others stared in awe. A firefighter stepped forward, his body radiating heat like a living furnace. "You're not alone," he said. Turning to the group, he added, "None of us are. Let's show these aliens what it means to mess with Earth." The group surged forward, their combined powers obliterating the alien ground troops. Sarah led them, hurling massive chunks of debris at the towering alien mechs. The firefighter melted their armor with waves of heat, while others leaped impossibly high, ripping apart drones with their bare hands. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In Tokyo, a man who had once been an office worker moved faster than the human eye could follow, dodging alien plasma bolts and striking back with devastating force. In Cairo, a group of children manipulated the very sand beneath their feet, creating massive whirlwinds that swallowed alien soldiers whole. The aliens, who had expected no resistance, were overwhelmed. Their advanced technology couldn't adapt to the chaotic and unpredictable nature of humanity's powers. High above Earth, the Galactic Empire's flagship, High Commander Zorath stood at the command deck, his violet eyes narrowing as he watched his forces struggle. "This is impossible," he growled. "No species has ever resisted the Empire like this." An officer hesitated before responding. "Commander, their abilities are spreading exponentially. The humans are adapting faster than we can contain them." "Then we escalate," Zorath snapped. "Deploy the obliterator cannons. I want this planet reduced to ash." The officer paled. "But sir, those cannons will destabilize their planet's core." "Exactly," Zorath interrupted. "If they will not bow, they will burn." The flagship's massive cannons began to charge, their glowing energy visible even from the surface. The Earth itself seemed to tremble as the Empire prepared to unleash its deadliest weapon. In the UN bunker, the bunker's monitors displayed the flagship's cannons powering up. Dr. Patel's face turned ashen as she realized what was about to happen. "They're going to destroy the planet," she whispered. "We're out of time," the president said, her voice shaking. "We can't fight something like that." The silver-haired man stepped forward, his ancient device glowing brighter than ever. "Yes, we can," he said firmly. "But we have to act now. The awakening is only the beginning. Humanity's full potential hasn't been unlocked yet. How do we unlock it?" Dr. Patel asked desperately. The man looked at her with a mix of urgency and determination. "We need to amplify the signal. This device was designed to awaken Earth's true power, but it was never meant to do it alone. There are ancient sites across the planet, places where Earth's energy is strongest. We need to activate them." The president frowned. "Ancient sites? You mean like Stonehenge? The pyramids?" "Exactly," the man replied. "They were built as conduits for this energy, long before humanity forgot their purpose. If we can synchronize them, we'll unleash a force strong enough to stop the Empire." The race against time. Teams were dispatched to the ancient sites, each led by a member of the newly awakened. In the freezing tundra of Siberia, a scientist-turned-warrior activated a long-buried obelisk, its runes glowing with golden light. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a group of enhanced humans uncovered a hidden temple, its stones humming with power as they reactivated its ancient mechanisms. In Egypt, the pyramids came alive, their tips glowing with beams of light that shot into the sky. The Great Wall of China, the Nazca Lines, and countless other locations followed suit, creating a global network of energy that connected through the Earth's core. The turning point. On the flagship, alarms blared as the Earth's energy began to surge. The cannon charging sequence faltered, its energy destabilized by the sudden interference. "Commander," an officer shouted, "the planet is emitting a power surge unlike anything we've seen. It's interfering with our systems." Zorath's eyes blazed with fury. "Fire the cannons. Now." The cannons fired, releasing devastating beams of energy toward the Earth's surface. But instead of destruction, the energy was absorbed by the glowing network of ancient sites. The Earth itself seemed to respond, redirecting the energy back toward the alien fleet in a massive burst. The flagship shook violently as the energy struck its shields, overloading them instantly. Smaller ships exploded, while larger ones were crippled, their weapons systems offline. On the ground, humanity cheered as the tide turned. Ordinary people fought alongside their enhanced counterparts, driving the remaining alien forces back. The final stand. As the flagship faltered, Zorath realized the truth. This planet, it's not just a world. It's alive. The silver-haired man, watching from the bunker, seemed to hear his words. He looked up at the sky and smiled faintly. "Now you understand." But the battle was far from over. Though the fleet was in retreat, Zorath was not ready to surrender. The flagship's core began to glow as he prepared one final desperate strike. On Earth, the silver-haired man raised his device once more, channeling the combined energy of the planet. "This is humanity's moment," he said softly. "Let's show them who we really are." And as the Earth itself roared in defiance, humanity prepared for its greatest victory yet. The Empire's fear. Above Earth, the Galactic Empire's once unshakable fleet now resembled a broken constellation. Smoke and debris from fallen warships scattered across the skies, and the flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, now flickered with erratic power surges. But even in the face of catastrophe, High Commander Zorath was not ready to concede. In the flagship's command chamber, Zorath stood rigid, his violet eyes blazing with fury. Around him, officers scurried to regain control of the situation, their usual arrogance replaced by desperation. "Commander," an officer stammered, "our shields are failing and weapon systems are down to 30%. The energy surges from the planet air. "I don't want excuses," Zorath roared, his voice echoing like thunder. "We are the Galactic Empire. One insignificant planet cannot defeat us. Divert all remaining power to the core. If we cannot conquer Earth, we will erase it from existence." "But sir—" "Do it," Zorath barked, slamming his armored fist on the console. The flagship's core began to glow ominously, its energy levels spiking far beyond safe limits. Outside, the ship's hull shimmered, radiating heat as the vessel prepared for a final, catastrophic strike. On Earth, humanity unites. On the surface, humanity's resistance had transformed into something extraordinary. For the first time in history, nations set aside their differences and worked as one. From the ruins of New York to the deserts of the Sahara, enhanced humans and ordinary citizens stood together, fighting back against the remnants of the alien invasion. In London, a man with the ability to manipulate sound waves amplified his voice across the city, coordinating evacuation efforts. In Mumbai, a group of engineers-turned-warriors used their newfound powers to neutralize an alien mech factory. Everywhere, the message was the same: humanity would not kneel. In the UN bunker, the silver-haired man watched the monitors intently. The ancient sites continued to channel energy, creating a global network that pulsed like a heartbeat. But his expression was grim. "They're preparing to overload their core," he said quietly. Dr. Patel looked at him, her face pale. "What does that mean?" "It means," the man replied, "if they succeed, Earth won't just lose this battle, it will cease to exist." The room fell silent. The president broke the tension. "How do we stop it?" The man hesitated for a moment, then turned to the central console. "The ancient sites have one final function. They weren't just built to awaken humanity. They were built to protect it." He placed his hand on his glowing device, and the rooms began to shift, forming intricate patterns that radiated an intense blue light. Aboard the flagship, the power buildup in the flagship reached critical levels. Zorath stood in the center of the chaos, his expression a mixture of rage and determination. "Begin the countdown," he commanded. "If I cannot rule this planet, then no one will." The ship's systems crackled, and alarms blared. The officers worked feverishly, but many had started to question their leader's sanity. "Sir," one officer said hesitantly, "if we fire the core at these levels, the backlash could destroy us too." Zorath's gaze was cold. "Then we die with honor. The Earth fights back." At the Great Pyramid of Giza, an enormous beam of golden light shot into the sky, connecting with similar beams from sites around the world. The silver-haired man stood in the UN courtyard, his device glowing brighter than ever. The ground beneath him trembled as the energy of the ancient sites converged, creating a protective barrier that enveloped the planet. "It's not enough," he murmured, his brow furrowing. "We need more." Sarah, the young woman from New York who had discovered her powers during the attack, stepped forward. "What do you mean? What can we do?" The man looked at her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "The ancient sites need a catalyst, someone to focus their energy. Without it, the shield won't hold against the flagship's final strike." "I'll do it," Sarah said without hesitation. The man shook his head. "The energy transfer could kill you." Sarah's gaze didn't waver. "If it saves the planet, it's worth it." Around her, others stepped forward, ordinary people who had discovered extraordinary powers. A firefighter, a teacher, a scientist. Each of them nodded in silent agreement. "We're stronger together," Sarah said. "Isn't that what this fight has been about?" The man looked at them, and a small, reluctant smile crossed his face. "Very well," he said. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The final strike. The flagship's cannon fired. A blinding beam of energy shot toward Earth, its heat so intense it scorched the clouds in its path. The alien officers braced themselves, expecting to see the planet disintegrate beneath their fury. Instead, the beam struck the protective barrier created by the ancient sites. The energy rippled across the shield, absorbed and redirected. In the UN courtyard, Sarah and the others channeled the energy through their bodies, their powers amplifying it. The strain was immense. Lightning crackled around them, and the ground quaked, but they didn't falter. The redirected energy surged back toward the flagship, a brilliant wave of light that cut through its shields like paper. The ship's hull buckled, its systems overloaded. Aboard the flagship, Zorath watched in disbelief as his masterpiece crumbled around him. "This cannot be," he whispered. The wave of energy engulfed the flagship, tearing it apart. The explosion lit up the night sky, visible from every corner of the earth. Victory, but at a cost. As the flagship disintegrated, the silver-haired man deactivated his device. The ancient sights dimmed, their task complete. Sarah collapsed to her knees, her body drained but alive. Around her, the other volunteers fell as well, exhausted but victorious. In the bunker, the leaders erupted in cheers. Across the globe, people celebrated, their fear replaced with hope. But the silver-haired man didn't join the celebration. He gazed up at the sky, his expression somber. "The Empire will return," he said quietly. This was only the beginning. The president approached him. "Then we'll be ready." He nodded slowly. "You've proven something today. Humanity isn't just strong. It's unstoppable when it stands together. Remember that." Above them, the remains of the Galactic Empire's fleet drifted in silence. And for the first time in centuries, the Empire knew the taste of fear. The Empire retreats. The night sky was littered with the smoldering wreckage of the Galactic Empire's fleet. Ships that once seemed invincible now hung in ruins, their twisted hulls reflecting the light of Earth's moon. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had been dealt a crushing defeat, and it was by a species they had deemed primitive. Across the globe, celebrations erupted. People cheered in the streets, their voices rising like a chorus of defiance. Fires burned in cities, but they were not just symbols of destruction. They were beacons of survival. Humanity had faced annihilation and endured. Aboard the damaged flagship, High Commander Zorath stood in the shattered remains of his command chamber. Sparks rained from the broken consoles, and the air was thick with smoke. The once proud commander, who had mocked Earth's warnings, now looked defeated. His once immaculate armor was cracked, and blood trickled from a wound on his brow. "Commander," an officer said weakly, clutching their side as they limped toward him. "Our fleet is lost. The core of our flagship is failing. We must retreat." Zorath turned to face the officer, his expression a mixture of rage and despair. "Retreat? We do not retreat. We are the Galactic Empire." The officer hesitated, then spoke with a quiet defiance. "Not anymore." Zorath stared at the burning earth below. He could see the energy of the ancient sites still pulsing faintly, a reminder of humanity's unyielding resistance. He clenched his fists. "Send the signal," Zorath growled. "Let the Empire know what has happened here. Let them know. This planet is cursed." The officer nodded and limped away to send the message. On Earth, the aftermath. In the ruins of New York, Sarah sat on the edge of what used to be a skyscraper, watching the sunrise. Her body was battered, and her mind was exhausted, but she was alive. Around her, others like her, ordinary people who had become extraordinary, helped the survivors and cleared the rubble. The silver-haired man approached her, his ancient device now dormant. He studied her for a moment before speaking. "You did well," he said simply. Sarah turned to him, her face pale but determined. "Did we win?" The man gave her a faint smile. "You won this battle, but the war is far from over." Sarah frowned. "They'll come back, won't they?" He nodded. "Yes, but next time. They won't underestimate you. That makes you dangerous." A message to the stars. As humanity celebrated, the Galactic Empire's broken fleet began to retreat. Smaller ships activated warp drives, disappearing into the void. The flagship, barely holding together, moved slowly away from Earth, its engine sputtering. But before they left, a signal was sent across the galaxy. It was short and simple. Earth resisted. The Empire failed. Proceed with caution. The Galactic Council. Far from Earth, in the heart of the Galactic Empire, the High Council convened in a massive chamber filled with representatives from countless species. They were used to hearing Zorath's victorious reports, but this time, the message was very different. The council chamber buzzed with whispers as Zorath's hologram flickered to life. The once proud commander now looked haggard and defeated. "High Commander Zorath," the council leader said, his voice sharp. "What is the meaning of this? How did a single planet defeat the might of the Empire?" Zorath bowed his head. "Earth is not what we thought it was. Their species is unpredictable, dangerous. They wield powers we do not understand." The council erupted in outrage. "Excuses," one member shouted. "You failed." Zorath raised his head, his expression grave. "You can strip me of my rank if you wish, but heed my warning. Earth is not to be taken lightly. If we attack again, it could destroy us. We must treat this planet as a threat, not a prize." The council fell silent. For the first time in its history, the Empire faced an enemy it could not conquer. Humanity's next step. On Earth, the ancient sites began to power down, their energies receding like a tide. The silver-haired man gathered a small group of awakened humans, including Sarah, in the heart of the UN ruins. "What happens now?" one of them asked. The man looked at each of them in turn. "Now, humanity prepares. You've proven your strength, but the galaxy knows about you now. Other empires will come. They'll test your resolve. Some will come as allies, others as enemies. And you?" Sarah asked. "What happens to you?" The man smiled faintly. "My work isn't done. There are others like me, watching, guiding. I'll return when I'm needed." Sarah frowned. "You're just leaving us." He shook his head. "No, I'm giving you the greatest gift, freedom. What you do with it is up to you." A new dawn. As the sun rose over a scared but defiant Earth, humanity began to rebuild. The awakened humans, once ordinary people, became symbols of hope and resilience. The world's nations, united by their shared struggle, vowed to never let the planet be vulnerable again. In the depths of space, the remains of the Galactic Empire's fleet disappeared into the void. But the story of Earth spread across the stars, carried by whispers of rebellion and defiance. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, other species who had suffered under the Empire's rule heard the message and began to hope. Earth was no longer a silent, isolated planet. It was now a symbol of resistance, a beacon of light in the darkness. But in the shadows of the universe, unseen forces stirred. Earth's victory had drawn the attention of more than just the Empire. And while humanity celebrated, the next challenge was already on its way. Closing words. Earth had survived, but the story was far from over. For now, humanity stood as a shining example of what it meant to fight back against impossible odds. But in the vastness of the galaxy, new threats loomed, and the real question remained: would humanity rise again when the stars came calling?